Okay, good evening and welcome. This is the December 5th, 2022. A regularly scheduled school committee meeting. Call the meeting to order 6 p.m. This meeting is being both audio and videotaped this evening, and I would ask that everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll move along to a roll call. John, you want to start us out?
Sure. John Fitzpatrick, student representative.
Amy Delenta. Antonella Rochella.
Gregory Thompson.
Gordon Smith, Superintendent of Schools.
Sarah Trulio.
Pamela Blair, Assistant Superintendent for Business.
Samantha Velasquez, Secretary.
Excellent, thank you all. We have one set of minutes for approval this evening.
Move to approve the November 21st, 2022 regular session meeting minutes.
Motion made by Sarah,
Second.
second by Amy, discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. You weren't there,
Yeah, I wasn't here that day.
so you're gonna abstain.
Yes.
1-1, or no, I'm sorry, 3-0.
0-1.
Okay, thank you. Committee and subcommittee communications. Antonella, you want to start us out?
I don't have anything.
Great. How about you, Amy? No? Sorry.
I don't think I have.
Okay, that was very productive. On to the next thing.
Next thing.
We have an opportunity for visitors to address the committee. Would anybody like to do that tonight?
Her.
Please come up, have a seat.
That's a hot seat. Oh,
It's your name and address if you don't mind, and
Sure. My name is Carolyn Farros. My address is 70 Fairview Street here in East Long Meadow. And I do not do well with public speaking, so I wrote something out so that I would not mess up. So I live in the neighborhood behind CVS. And I have 2 children in 5th grade that attend Maple Shade Elementary School. And we moved here in September 2020. We're online. Then we went to kind of a hybrid thing. My kids rode the bus last year. They rode the bus again, and we made the decision for them to walk this year. We live less than a mile from the school. Since making that decision, a huge issue has come up that I did not realize was an issue, and that is safety. My kids walk less than a mile to school, and there's no crossing guard for them to cross Maple Shade at John. They frequently have to wait for 20 or 30 cars to finally stop before somebody stops. My one daughter who walks home from school 1 day a week because my other child is in an after-school activity has almost been hit multiple times where one driver will stop and the others just aren't paying attention. And at 11 years old, she's not exactly paying attention herself. So we've had a couple instances where other drivers have cussed at her and made rude gestures to her as she's like, I'm in the crossing, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. The alternative is that I pay over $500 for my kids to ride the bus because we live less than 2 miles from the school. I've called the safety officer, have not heard back from him. After the second time, when Isabella came home crying because she'd almost been hit, I actually physically took her to the police station. And the woman that was there was very nice, but had no answers. Basically was like, he's got something in the works. That doesn't work for me as a mom. So the alternative is that I pay to put her on a bus. And that's a lot of money when I live less than a mile from the school. I feel like my situation is not even the worst. I know there are lots of parents who live less than 2 miles from the schools, and their walking situation is much, much worse than what I have to deal with. So I'm asking the school committee to look at that and think about how can we alleviate that situation for the parents, safety versus money. Like I would pay any amount of money to keep my kids safe, but if there are parents who don't have it, then what's the other option? So I'm just coming to you guys for help.
Is there a remedy in mind you would think would fix the issue?
When I contacted the safety officer, I suggested flashing lights. There's signs saying that there's a crosswalk there. I had suggested that they put up flashing lights like they have at Center Field. He, again, I never actually got to talk to him, so I don't know what his thoughts were on that. I grew up a military brat, so I've lived everywhere. And when we lived in Northern Virginia, when I was in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, we had student crossing guards to help kind of alleviate some of in the less high traffic areas. I don't know if that would be an option. I would love it if a police officer was sitting there at this point, like anything would be better than nothing, but maybe look at the boundaries of, instead of just saying it's a standard 2 miles, because 2 miles, I live less than 2 miles from the high school. So that's a pretty significant walk for my kids to have to cross Main Street and then navigate their way, around to the high school and then cross, I don't even remember what the name of the street is, but those are pretty significant streets that my kids have to navigate within a 2 mile radius. Mountain View, I can't imagine any child having to walk to Mountain View. So I think that maybe reevaluating that policy and just kind of seeing if there's an adjustment that can be made. I understand if you live like in the houses next door to Maple Shade, obviously renting a bus for them kind of seems redundant, but just kind of reevaluating it.
Yeah, and so just so you understand, or just know, the 2 miles comes from the state, so.
Sure.
Certainly we could change that on our level, but that's driven by the state. They came up with the 2 miles.
Yeah, understood.
And any thoughts, Gordon?
The first thing I wrote down, and it sounds like you've already done it, so is talking to the safety officer, so I will find out what's going on there and try to get some thoughts from the police department and then go from there in terms of thoughts that they have. DPW might be able to help us with some things and start to look at that. And then if you want us to look at it, the policy subcommittee, we can, come together and look at policies from other districts and certainly, try to make some type of recommendation.
There is a crosswalk in John?
There is, yeah, there's a crosswalk in the,
Striped, or is it an open one?
it's just white lines.
Well, because it's different, right? An open one, cars don't have to stop. Am I right in saying that? Or do they have to stop at all?
I think they're supposed to stop in all of them.
That's it,
Yeah.
but all of them.
Okay,
And there is a sign on either side. The issue is that you have people coming off of Main Street and it's kind of a blind turn there.
Yeah.
There's lots of overgrowth and then they're coming off of Main and
Yeah.
they're racing to get to the next stoplight or they're racing to get to the light at Main and they're just not paying attention. I actually had a bus the other day. I started meeting them at the corner so that I could be there. And I did ask when I went to the police station, can I record? Because I want to make sure I want to provide them with information so they can see, this is not to get anybody specifically in trouble, but look at how many vehicles are passing through. And one of our own school buses drove right by as they're standing on one side and I'm on the other, just didn't even stop. I have called them and addressed it with them, but that's kind of what I mean. It's it's just kind of a thing in our community. It's just, people just aren't stopping.
I like the flashing light. I'm learning more about what agencies regulate what can go where.
Yeah.
So maybe the flashing lights is something the town can do. But I can check that out.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you so much, because this is scary. This is a scary problem, and I think I've heard definitely from others in the community. Obviously, the financial burden for some families is something that probably we could also talk about, but the safety issues I have heard over and over again, that the 2 mile radius, while I understand it is a state, it is coming from the state, it is scary because our town isn't necessarily appropriately laid out for that in a lot of cases. So thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you.
hi,
Hi, I'm back.
welcome back.
Fence, Elm Avenue still. So I'm actually going to piggyback on what Carolyn was talking about a little bit with buses, just because we also live within the 2 mile radius, technically. But I don't really have the option of letting my kids walk to school because my kids would have to walk down Vineland, which has no sidewalks, and then cross Westwood, which there's no crossing. There's not even a crossing
No cross.
there, much less a crossing guard. Like that intersection, I think is dangerous for cars, much less my children trying to cross there. And so it's frustrating to me that I don't really have the choice. I have to pay the $500+ to bus my kids to school because we live within 2 miles and there's not a safe alternative. Like, I feel like if you're going to make me choose, like I should have a safe alternative for my children. And right now I don't. And then we've consistently had problems with the buses this year. Bus 20 was late more than 10 minutes again today. And when that happens, that means that then I'm late to work because I have to then take my kid to school. You know, so she's out of the bus stop at 6:45 in the morning. And by 7:05, the bus still wasn't there. So as a parent, I'm just frustrated because I don't have a safe alternative for her to get to school. And so I'm paying $500 for a bus that's not even consistently showing up on time. So I don't really know what to do other than to come to you guys. I've talked to some of you individually about the safety concerns in the past, but I get the 2 mile radius thing being the state minimum, but I do think that there can be kind of something else that we can do to mitigate what happens in like the 1 to 2 mile radius, just because we don't have sidewalks and a lot of our neighborhoods, a lot of I don't know there are any sidewalks over around Meadowbrook, to be honest, if kids are walking to school over Meadowbrook. So I would assume that either all the parents are taking us
Down Parker Street, there are.
Yeah, on Parker Street there are, but none of the other streets, to my knowledge. And, I don't drive over there looking for sidewalks. So I don't know. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. And I know that's something you have to coordinate with the town as well. That's not really a school board issue, but how can we make sure that there is a safe way for our kids to get to school, from all sides of town. So that was my main concern for tonight, but I also brought my application for the Diversity and Equity Steering Committee. Right. I don't know who to give that to.
But to Samantha, well,
Perfect.
thank you.
And I was just wondering who the school board rep that was on that committee, because it says there's supposed to be one rep from,
So Mrs. Margin Boucher, who's not here tonight,
Okay.
is
is the one on that.
representative on that committee.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what I
Actually,
expected.
there may be two.
I was like,
Are you also?
wasn't like a full-time spot for me, but yes, I was in.
We may draft Mrs. Truly as a full-time spot.
All right, thank you.
Free agent last.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll move on to first presentation, which is an update on the East Lamino High School school building projects.
Okay. Switch. Yeah. And go to the slide that I want. There we go. Okay. So thank you, Mr. Thompson. In your packets, you have the printed slides, but on the screens behind me, you will see the slides as we go through. So this is just to give everyone an update on where we are in the feasibility study with the project at East Long Meadow High School. So obviously that's our existing high school, looking grand on a beautiful day. Just a couple points, some of which you may have heard in the last update, but wanted to make sure people are understanding. So currently, the feasibility study is in what the design team calls the preferred schematic report phase. But what does that mean? Simply put, that means that our next big submission to the Mass School Building Authority is going to come in February. So just a couple months after the holiday break. And the school building committee, who have been wrestling with basically 3 different scenarios, base repair, code upgrade, which more or less, I think, through the discussions on the school building committee and our public forums, has simply become something that's there for public information. I don't think that that's necessarily where the push is in terms of but the eventual narrowing down will be at least the feedback that I've gotten from the school building committee and in the public forums. But that's still going through in terms of the feasibility study to make sure that we have all the information as to what costs would be to do that. Then the Mass School Building Authority requires that with their grant funding that you look at some type of renovation to the existing building with possibly an addition. And so there will be a design for that. And then early on in our last update, we were talking about 2 possible designs for new construction. I think that now has really become one, which I'll go through this evening for all of you. And as I said, the majority of the public feedback in the community forums that we've had and in the surveys that we put out there has been for new construction. And we will continue to have meetings, whether they be smaller meetings with PTOs or medium-sized meetings. I want to say larger, but I think it was probably a medium-sized meeting in terms of the community forum we just recently had in November at the high school. So what we've done to date is we've had 3 community forums, one June 15th before school got out at the end of last year, September 21st at the senior center, and then most recently November 16th here at the high school. And we most likely will be scheduling more as we come out of the holiday break to continue to get information out and receive more feedback before we submit that next larger submission to the Mass School Building Authority. 2 of our presentations, not community forums, smaller presentations have been to either a PTO or a school council. That was the Meadowbrook PTO and the high school council. And we do want to hit, as we come out of the holiday break, do a presentation for the Mountain View PTO and the Maple Shade PTO. And Meadowbrook also invited us back. I guess when they felt that we had more information or we were more prepared. Also, I think hopefully to have a larger crowd, because there was a smaller crowd at that one. So we hope in the spring to be meeting at the schools once again. This fall, the design team has been meeting with the faculty. They've not only attended some faculty meetings, they've also been here and actually in this conference room meeting with different groups of high school faculty, just to make sure they're getting feedback on how different departments operate on a day-to-day basis, how programs are working, and where probably most importantly, programs may go should we be able to design for it, which is exciting. Students also have had a chance to interact, and we're scheduling, I think in the next week or 2, we have a couple meetings between the design team and specific groups of students. I don't know if John, are you in that at all? Do you?
I haven't heard anything about it, but I know
We got to get you into
I
that.
would like to be a part of that.
All right.
I gave my email to the architects when I saw them at the, I think it was National Night Out in the summer, so. Yep.
All right, let me see what, also a secondary follow-up, talk to Mr. Page tomorrow.
Yes.
See what date, but let me write down also about, get you in there. All right, good. So we're scheduling with students and we did have a booth at the National Night Out, which I think was helpful. And then there was a survey that came out of that National Night Out informational time. And that survey was out online for the end of August into a little bit of September. And then the architects have been incorporating that feedback into different things that they've been presenting to the school building committee, and then that adjusts design and thoughts. New build starting to take shape. And so this is the first time that we've seen an actual sketch of what the property could look like with new construction, and incorporating some of the feedback and thoughts that they've gotten all the way through that I just outlined. That may be what the layout could look like with a redesign for the bus arrival, as well as student and parent arrival, providing more parking and some separation, which I think is needed. We were talking earlier as our 2 visitors expressed around safety. And certainly that's what we're trying to accomplish here is keep it safer than it is right now as arrival happens and you often will have buses and cars intermixing, and we'd like to separate that out. This also gives you a look at how the fields would be outlined, and you'll see more of this as we go through. And then the dotted line is where the pool would go. Remember, the pool has to be a separate, although the architects can design it and continue to cost it out for us, eventually it's going to have to become a separate project.
Just on the pool, I've asked that we, when we do design it, that we make it accessible more so than just a ladder. So that some of the older folks in the community would be able to access it wading in. So one little extra feature just to give it more appeal to the townspeople.
Right, which is actually something that that's a great recommendation. And we talked early on when we had the senior center and the rec department here with the architects about how we continue to work in community features like that. So that's awesome.
So much that can be done with adaptive aquatic for just
Right.
students in general, especially when we think about, I know the Y in Wilbraham has like those 0 entry pools that are terrific for students or individuals across the community, elderly or not, who can benefit from aquatics, but the ladder is often a hindrance. So it opens that to be more accessible to your point, the entirety of the community.
Also for the community, we discussed the like a yoga studio, for lack of better terms, but accessible from the outside with its own bathroom so that the community could use that also without having school. And actually, the architects talk about how the whole central corridor could be open
Yep.
to get to the large learning
Cafeteria and then the large group instruction.
large group
space.
instructional space, which is in the back actually, but people could actually walk in.
I'll be able to
Everything
show,
else gated off.
right.
Yeah. So
I'll be able to show some of that hopefully
Okay.
as we go in. So this just gives you an updated sort of more of an aerial sketch, if you will, of the site plan. And just to point out a few things. So over here, if people can see my cursor, that's the existing turf field. And so that's going to stay.
And currently, we're looking at add the bathrooms and concessions as part of
Correct.
the.
Up here, I think it's somewhat outlined right there in darker lines. That would be the concession and bathroom facility for this area, which would also bring in, the tennis courts will get shifted in a new build. And so these are tennis courts that would have lighting and then 2 basketball courts. This is rearranging parking as well as you saw from the first picture, arrival. We have not designated one or the other in terms of this is buses, this is parent drop off. That will be figured out down the road. All of this is very preliminary, and much of this you're seeing directly after our school building committee meeting on Thursday. So this is all new stuff. Sorry, to continue on field outlay here. So the nice thing is by moving the building a little bit south here, we pick up a lot of land over on this side. And so we can start to outline some game fields and a practice field. Really exciting is we're going to have 2 softball fields,
Which we don't have now.
which we do not have now on the high school site. We do have softball fields,
Right.
but not on the high school site. Yeah. And then we maintain the 2 baseball fields. One, I think, is still in the same position. One would actually be moved and redone. So we pick up a number of fields that give us multiple use and now support athletes, all our athletes better.
I know it's
So that's okay.
preliminarily, but I'd like to bring it up for next
Sure.
time we go, because I woke up at 3 a.m. thinking about this. The
Right.
2 soccer fields up against each other,
Over
we
here.
should put that football field in the middle, because if the 2 soccer fields are being used at once, they're way too tight.
Yeah,
But if
okay,
the football field's in the middle, I just wanted to mention that when we're there next time.
yeah, okay. Let's definitely mention it to that's another one. Get John the invitation, mention people.
And within the Guess you get what?
Get John the.
In my notes.
Okay, John. And then we're closing Norton Street.
Yes, so
On
all
this plan.
these, all these plans so far do not have a Norton Street access, which certainly is something that our neighbors out here have expressed to, again, get back to traffic safety. You know, they've. dealt
So
with that
there is a
frequently.
walking path, as you can see, and that walking path goes all the way, and we're talking about it still. Yeah, out to the bike rail, all the way to the far right.
Yep.
It's gonna require,
Right out here.
it's like what would they say, like 6 feet difference?
Right, yep.
So we're gonna have to figure out that part. We know we can get there. We just haven't figured out how to get up to it. So, but it would be, you know, convenient walking space and access to the building from the rail trail, bikes and whatnot.
So people would have to park in the front and then walk all the way in. the
Yeah,
back.
so that's all part of
There
that
are,
circle.
there will be handicap parking here,
Yeah.
where my cursor is. And then obviously there's first come, first served after school parking here.
And then we'd have to put a parking lot in the back, which would take us field space.
We'll try to put the more popular soccer games here.
There you go.
People who can park here. But those will be decisions that we make later.
Yeah.
Okay, so that gives you an idea of, and as you can see, that's where the pool would be.
And there's more parking spaces in this plan than we currently have on the ground now.
And I just want to mention, Antonella, there was a lot of conversation about that, right? For folks being able to get back there. I believe part of the plan is that there is going to be an area for maybe pulling down and dropping off. And then
Why? Like.
I think this is as close as it gets.
it is.
No, I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
No, I think you're right, Gordon,
I
because
mean,
that's central office parking.
just because we want it accessible to all family
Yes.
members.
Yeah.
If they want to come and watch their,
Absolutely. We want to make it accessible. What we don't want to do is recreate this
Yeah,
out here.
I wonder if we could put a loop on the end of that little nub,
Possibly.
you know,
no,
just for
So
drop off
just to
only.
give you an idea, what they are thinking, so this is now what it would look like in terms of a floor plan. So this is the first floor. And then over here is the second floor. This is the area we're talking about in terms of having some handicap parking. And then I think there will be a loop, and the reason that I think there will be a loop is that right here, if everybody can see my cursor, I know it's small. That's our current childhood development program where we have little big kids preschool. And so this would allow us to actually have their own drop off, which happens after school starts in terms of the high school.
Make that note, Gordon, because I don't believe that loop is there.
Okay.
Because I think we specifically talked about a dead end on that. And that's a great idea. You're making a great point, because that should be a whole nother drop off.
So we make that note for my
Great point,
evaluation.
yes.
Great point. Okay. And I'll be speaking with the architects later this week, so I can look at all my notes. So they do want to have some access here, and then there would be, this is the area they were talking about by the fields. This gives you an idea of sort of how things are broken out. And then I have two slides breaking out first floor and second floor, which is a little bit bigger. So I'll go there next, but this gives you where you would have a second floor sort of overlying similar colors. If you see where it says pupil services, district offices would be right above pupil services. And
So here's the front door,
yep, front door.
and here's that large construction area. You can see all the like close off portions they have here. Close all these wings off, but still have access to the gym as you walk in.
Right.
And the pool that way, the auditorium, cafeteria, large group instruction. But then, like I said, all these could be gated off, so people wouldn't be roaming the building. Although when I was at Marlin back in the day, we used to love running around this building after hours from the janitor,
There's no liability, so
no,
back in the good old days.
in the good old days. Okay. Prior to me becoming superintendent.
Much prior.
So this is the first floor, and just as Mr. Thompson was saying, so this would be the front area. And we obviously have not gotten to the point where exactly what that's going to look like in terms of aesthetics and so forth, but it would be your access in terms of students arriving, but also should we, you know, or when we have different public events, such as sporting events in the gym, or if different groups were using, say, the weight room, and this is the alternative area that Mr. Thompson was talking about. And so this would have access, we can have, just as we would have access, public access to the gym, this could have after-school access, and we could still lock down this area and the academic area, and this would still be open to people if people are seeing my cursor. Yep, okay.
And then also that other town committees could meet.
Correct.
Either the LGI or the alternative.
What they're also thinking, and it's harder to see down here, is you can see, we can have public access right there.
Except there's no parking back there.
That's a good point.
That's why I wanted access to that, but if we get it through.
So
the
they
front,
could walk all the way through
That's
here,
fine. I
and
think
we'd block
that's
off,
fine.
yeah, and then they could still get to
It's like a
LGI.
grand arrival.
So LGI stands for, so that everybody knows, large group instruction. So that would be a larger room that can be, would have flexible furniture that could be set up many different ways. And so not only could it be the combining of all these ninth grade social studies classes, because they have a speaker coming in, but then you also could then set it up for some type of town meeting that night. Or a school committee meeting. You also down here, we were looking at possibly, no, I apologize. LCAT and the video studio would be up here. And so you still might be able to do some things there in terms of filming different public meetings. Because you have a large space here. So there's going to be a few different options where the public would have access and you still could close down sections of the high school, which we don't have the ability to do right now.
And new to the concept is a second elevator.
Yes.
Because what's going on the second floor? Administration?
So you have pupil services here. Okay, and so you would have an exterior access here. Pupil services gets a decent amount of traffic on a daily basis. And so it made sense to put them on the first floor. If we move up district offices to the second floor. We also know that chorus, band, and the auditorium would be public spaces. And so you might have access here. And so rather than try to crunch these areas where for years we've been trying to get more rehearsal space for our band, better rehearsal space for both band and chorus. You also have early childhood. Rather than trying to crunch this down and put district offices here, the thought was to put them upstairs above student support services. And so then to make sure that we have access, you both have stairs and an elevator right there. And I believe the other elevator in the building is right over here. So you'd have two elevators in the building, where currently we have one elevator that's undersized. That may have been original to the building.
Oh, yeah,
Yes, okay,
definitely.
definitely original to the building. Excellent. It has been inspected every year,
That's
and repairs have been made.
Do you want to go back to the last one? There is access for deliveries.
Yes,
So to the east side, yeah, there'll be
It'll be
access,
back here.
access driveway.
Yeah.
With a
so coming in this way.
termination, right? You have the ground, so you
So
can see it back there.
coming off here, this would now allow for larger vehicles to drop off and actually have a loading dock right here where, sorry. Currently, the way the school is designed, those type of deliveries would have to come off Norden. And the reality is, if you have an 18-wheeler trying to come off, they cannot deliver behind the school. So they go to the front of the school and then everything is hand carted back to the back of the school. Which is not the most efficient way to do things. So this would be designed so you could have larger vehicles come in, deliver to a loading dock, and then get back out.
And then those three green rectangular future pickleball courts, I don't think we're gonna have them in the original design, but they'll be in the
They will have a cost,
plan. Yeah.
but they may not be in the project. But it's something that we know pickleball is a sport that's not only being picked up quite quickly across the nation, very quickly in town. And I believe, John, it is a physical education unit. Am I correct?
It is, yep, we do have a unit on that.
How do you like it? Pickleball.
It's interesting, I
Yeah?
would say.
All like tennis?
Good answer.
Similar to tennis,
Yeah.
a little bit different, but I know there's usually a group out there of residents from town.
Yeah, it's-
who
Typically,
plays pick.
Well, to that point, we gotta replace what we have because we did one. So I think for now, we might line the tennis courts.
Line one
like
of
we have
these, just
here.
like we have,
Yeah.
yeah. So you can double line it, so we can, similar to what we have now, right? So this is something that, should we be able to fit that into the budget? 3 pickleball courts. If not, there's space for later. And of course, the pool. Ever project. However, you see sketched out, at some point, they will attach. The architects are making sure that that's ready to go.
The grade difference from the street to back of the lot is what, 10 feet? That's pretty substantial.
Yeah.
15, 10 to 15.
I mean, I think
We'll
these
be looking
fields,
down at the building as you come in instead of, which we do now, I guess, a little bit.
they're gonna have to do some work to level these fields.
Yeah.
Because these are on the hill.
Right, oh, yeah.
Yep.
Retaining wall.
I don't know, it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, well,
One thing that I do find interesting is work that's going on at these houses. The contractors often traverse our fields and go in the back
oh,
way.
nice.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I just did that.
We are a community partner.
Good.
So, so that's where the feasibility study is. That's where the school building committee is. And it's been, the committee's been great. We've done a lot of work. Been some really healthy debate. And we'll continue to have that healthy debate. And I believe as we come out of the holidays, not only will we try to schedule some more community forums, I believe a small group from the school building committee will be going to the town council to provide an update and information to them. So that we can start to coordinate understanding and just communication. Is I think unfortunately, we're finding that we're not as fast as social media, and so information that might not be as accurate gets out there, and then it raises questions and confusion. And so we want to make sure that as much of the questions we can answer and clarify anyone or for anyone, any issues that they might be confused on. I think that's going to be helpful. Questions?
no, I appreciate the update and the hard work, but I know that subset of the committee is putting in to ensure that this is really addressing the community needs as well as the academic. Appreciate.
That's what we're hoping that it can be I think one of the committee members has said, it's sort of a generational opportunity to really move the town forward. And we'd love to have that come to fruition and really move us forward. And just go to that top slide. It's looking sharp.
It does.
That blows away Long Meadow. That's off. It's just one person's opinion.
Oh, it's really nice.
No. On to the next agenda item. I'll apologize to my fellow superintendent.
Already
Okay.
lives here, so he'd probably be happy.
That is true, actually. He does live in town.
Was very supportive of one of the
He's
meetings.
very
That's right.
supportive. And actually, when they did Long Meadow, he was over in Hampton, Wilbraham.
So it wasn't his baby.
It wasn't his baby.
There you go. Okay, thank you, Gordon, for that update.
Sure.
We have a discussion of Heritage Park project and the town's application for a park grant. As you all know, we had this on for prior discussion. The school department, or specifically the school committee, has jurisdiction over 19 acres of Heritage Park. The town manager has asked that we relinquish got a responsibility for that so that they can apply for the park grant, which is 400.
Up to 400,000 and they can apply on an annual basis. I think the only designation is that they would have to designate, if they're applying for 400,000 concerning this aspect of the project, then they would have to just designate, okay, is there another aspect of the project that this new money would go to? As far as I understand it, but I don't have an in-depth understanding, but they are looking to apply for more than 1 year, so that this would be, sort of a pacing approach to the project.
We met Antonella, Pam, Gordon, myself, met with Mary, Bruce, and Tom,
Christensen, yeah.
and just went through it all. We talked about our project, the high school project, and timing. This is not as shovel ready as our project.
Okay.
So the plan is to not go before us, which I thought was important, that we not ask the town for any more money before us. Also, I did get a chance to walk the 19 acres at the school department. I had never done that before, and it's not anything. It's basically wet and trenches. It's all up and down. If you ever go in there, it's something that's not really buildable. So to think that we could put central office there or something in the future is probably not very feasible. So with those 2 points, I was comfortable with giving it up.
Yeah.
Right? Were you
Yeah,
at the meeting?
yes, I was at the meeting.
No, I mean, we were comfortable giving it up. I know, I just said you were there. Right?
Yes, I mean, I really liked the project when they went through it. I definitely think it would make our town better. And a lot of people would be able to use the space for what they're planning to do with it. So.
I appreciate you all taking on that meeting and being able to bring forward some additional information and different perspective in terms of how the land will be used. I think knowing that that money can be applied for annually
Right.
also has an impact in terms of budgetary
Right.
pieces across the town. So that's great for them to be able to have that opportunity.
And they
Yeah.
also discussed like doing it, they might be able to do it in like pieces too. So it's not like it's either all or nothing.
Which is tremendous. I think that helps if we're pacing things out, given that there's a lot of priorities right now and don't want those to be seen as competing priorities, but rather work that can be done in a systematic way to push forward like the vision of the community as a whole.
Mhm.
That's right. Because we have a lot of capital projects that we are looking for the
Absolutely.
school, so it's important that we look at all of them collectively and then make decisions accordingly. Cool. So with that, if someone wants to make a motion, we have to,
Is there official language in one of these?
yeah, it's here. So it's not official, but the school committee votes that the parcel in question is no longer needed for school purposes. That's in this one, and it's also in this one. So we would need to move that the school committee has decided that the parcel is no longer needed.
19 acres in Heritage Park. Yeah.
And then once we decide that it's no longer needed, then the council can decide on who would have jurisdiction, who they would give it to from there. So I would say that the motion should be that the school committee agrees that there's no longer need for the 19 acres at the Heritage Park that's being requested, and that we are relinquished our,
Transfer the care and custody.
well, but the town does that. We don't do that. We just give it up.
Oh,
We just give up our care and custody.
Well, did we say may transfer care and custody, management control?
That's the town council's job.
Oh, that's at the next, okay.
So we just have to
that's
relinquish.
what I was gonna.
All we should use those words, no longer needed for school purposes. As long as we say that, then I'm cool with it.
All right, so then I move to approve that the 19-acre parcel of land located at Heritage Park is no longer needed for school purposes.
Perfect. Sam, did you get that verbatim? Because they're gonna want that. Okay. Motion's been made by Sarah,
Second,
second by Antonella. Any other discussion?
Just I appreciate that this was multiple meetings and that sometimes we just need additional clarity in order to know that we're making a decision that's in the best interest of the whole. So I appreciate everyone's commitment to seeing this conversation through to the end.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
I,
Aye, those opposed, nay. That carries 4-0.
Okay.
You'll let,
We'll
Mary
learn,
know.
yeah, we'll learn. All right. Thank you.
And one more thing on the agenda, we have a field trip to the Connecticut Science Museum for the 3rd grade.
We do. So there's a memo, which I have now misplaced in my paperwork. Thank you. From Mrs. Santinello. Addressed to me, and it's just outlining a field trip that's going to take place in June of 23. It's for the 3rd grade. And so you have approximately, it'll probably be a little bit over 100 students, but roughly 100 students with 13, 14 adults going. Their PTO is going to subsidize the cost of transportation, which is nice. And tickets are approximately $20 a piece.
Right? It's a great spot to visit.
It is
Yeah.
a good spot. I'm sure they'll be running deals over the holiday break.
All right, a motion to approve that, please.
Move to approve the 3rd graders at Mountain View only, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
At Mountain View, heading to the Connecticut Science Museum for a field trip in June of 2023.
Okay, motion made by Sarah,
Second,
second by Antonella, discussion. All those in favor say aye.
I,
Aye, those opposed, nay. That carries 4-0. And with that, unless anybody has anything else. John, thanks for stepping in today. Appreciate it. Jamie, thanks for your time and efforts tonight. And I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion made by Sarah,
second.
second by Antonella, discussion. All those in favor say aye.
I.
Aye, those opposed, nay. That carries 4-0. We are done. Good night.